Okay, in this video, I'd like to walk through the sample solutions for the day 57 assignment. We were working on these types of questions before we left for home instruction, so this particular formula should look familiar to you. The only difference is that this worksheet uses the letter B for ending balance, whereas we used the letter A in class for ending amount. The instructions I posted to Schoology reminded you to go ahead and skip number 2 and number 3 on this assignment, and that's where we would have used this APY, or annual percentage yield. This is a computation that's used in our financial algebra class, so for those of you that move on to that course, you'll see this again. For us in Algebra 2, I'm not too concerned about it. So let's walk through these guided exercises first. Well, it's only question number 1. We're skipping number 2. And if Jeff deposits $2,300 at the beginning of an investment cycle, well, that stands for our P, or our principal starting amount. At 3.13% interest, well, that gives us our R value, but remember that the R value must be written as a decimal. So I've just moved this decimal point 2 places to the left. That's how I obtained this value here. When interest is compounded weekly or calculated weekly, this gives us an N value of 52. And we want to know what his investment would be worth after 1 year. And that gives us a T value, time of 1. So I'm not sure if any of you started on this already or caught this mistake, but as it turns out, the worksheet that I've provided to you actually does have a mistake in it. The N value is supposed to be 52, not 4. This would have been good if the investment was compounded quarterly, but the instructions clearly did say weekly, so we need to change that to 52. So I'm going to cross this out, change that to 52, and this one to 52 as well. Anywhere that we see the letter N, we need to make that change. And so the way this worksheet's set up, it's telling you to substitute and simplify. So now I'm going to reach for a basic calculator and do what simplification I can. This 2300 on the outside doesn't change, but 52 times 1 on the outside over here does, and 52 times 1 is the power of 52. We would also be able to compute this block as well, even using a basic calculator. When using a basic calculator, though, you do need to follow the order of operations on your own. So within this grouping symbol, I would do any multiplication and or division first, and I do see that here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that math. 0.0313 times, divided by 52, and I'll press enter. And I'm not going to touch my calculator at all. I know we've got these long decimals, and that's one thing to avoid, but also we've got this e to the negative fourth power. That's basically scientific notation here, and we should add 4 zeros to the left of this. But I'm not going to bother with that because I can actually store this number in the calculator and retain all of those decimals inside. So I'm going to leave that alone, and we've just completed this division. So after multiplication and division comes addition and subtraction. We're still inside the grouping symbol here, so I'll go ahead and add 1 to that and press equals again. Here again, I'm leaving this decimal inside the calculator. I don't want to clear this out. I'm leaving it alone. And now that our work inside the parentheses is finished, we can move on to the exponents, which in this case is an exponent of 52. Now before I execute that, I am going to write this decimal down just for reference, but I'm again going to leave this number in the calculator. So I know what decimal approximately that I used here. But I'm leaving this alone, and now I'm going to raise this to the power of 52. And on this calculator, the exponent key is this one. So we'll raise that to a power of 52 and press enter again. Lastly, after the exponents are finished, we'll move on to multiplication and division outside of that inner grouping symbol, and this number left in our calculator should be multiplied by 2300. So we'll multiply by 2300, press enter, and it looks like 2373.10, but that 0 gets rounded up, so I'm going to call that 11. 2373 11. And we are talking about money here, so I'll go ahead and include my dollar sign for units. So Jeff's ending balance is $2,373.11 after leaving his money, which he started with $2,300 after leaving that alone for 1 year. At the end of that year, he's earned an additional $73 on top of that. So again, we're going to skip number 2. We're not going to bother with the APY for this assignment, although you're more than welcome to try that on your own. Same thing with number 3. It again is asking about APY, which we're skipping for right now. So I'm going to move on to number 4 here, and let's see if we can address this one. In this problem, we have a balance. Now they're using the word balance. We used the word principal in this particular case because this is a starting amount. So I'm going to say that this $19,000 is what this person is starting with. So that's our P value. Paying 4% interest, so that's our R value. Remember to move that decimal 2 places to the left. And this interest is compounded daily, so we know that our N value is 365. We would like to know what the ending balance or the ending amount is after 3 years' time. So we're going to let a time of 3 years pass. So no other deposits or withdrawals are made. He's not going to touch this account whatsoever. So the formula, A equals P times 1 plus R over N to the NT power would be perfect to use here. So let's go ahead and make some substitutions. The P value, $19,211.34 times 1 plus 0.04 divided by 365 to the power of 365 times 3. Now, in case you forgot, the reason why we're dividing this by 365 and then we're turning around and changing this power to 365 times the amount of time is that we're calculating, what portion of this percentage, because this is an annual percent, what portion of this percent is applied every single day. So if there's a 4% growth per year, we divide that by 365, and that'll tell us what our percentage growth per day is. And essentially this gives us our growth factor per day, and this calculation on the outside calculates how many days will pass in the 3 years' time. So if we know that we're going to grow by this much per day, we can use this calculation to find out how many days pass, and then ultimately determine how much money our account is worth after the time is up. So again, with a basic calculator, I would clear everything now to start fresh here. And start with the innermost parentheses and follow the order of operations. 0.04 divided by 365, press enter, and add 1. I'm not going to touch this decimal. I'm going to leave that in the calculator. And now that we're finished with the innermost parentheses, we can raise this to a power of 365 times 3. My calculator has parentheses, so I'm going to use them. If your calculator doesn't, then it might be a good idea to figure out what 365 times 3 is before you do this next step. But I've pressed the exponent key, and I've got a set of parentheses in which I can complete 365 times 3. I've closed those parentheses, and the result on the screen is just the result of that mini computation. So now I have to press equals, and this is the result of that original decimal raised to the power of 365 times 3. We get this result right here. That number completes the parentheses and the exponents. So now we can move on to multiplication, and I'll multiply by 19,211.34. And it looks like that this gentleman's account has grown to a total, or an ending amount, of $21,660.58. 21,660.58. So this is how much we know that's in the account at the end. There's a second question here, though, and it asks how much interest is earned. Well, interest, if you recall, is the amount over what we started with. Now this person started with $19,000 and ended with $21,000. So if I wanted to find out how much they earned in interest, how much the account grew by, I'm going to take this final number here, 21,660.58, and I'm going to subtract from it our starting amount, 19,211.34. And this shows me that this person earned almost $2,500 in interest. If you'd like a formula to use, then this is it right here. We're going to take our ending amount and subtract our starting amount, and that's what our interest is equal to. I've already done this in the calculator, so I'll go ahead and write this result down here, 2449.24. And that's the amount of interest that was earned. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here and create a second video for the remaining questions. Thanks.